Welcome everyone to another episode of Creadores Creativos, where we meet curious people that are building amazing things and they are bringing their best ideas into reality while they enjoy the process. And today I have Josh, a very good friend of mine. Uh, he is a Notion builder and a great husband, for what I can see. And I've been interested in learning more about behind all the things he shared. So, Josh, thank you for being here and for accepting the invitation.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
And I would like to start with how did you get into Notion? How did you realize, like, this is interesting. I want to learn more about it and spend time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, obviously, Notion is kind of how we connected in the first place, talking about that stuff. But Notion, it obviously clicks with me. And so I love it. I think I first got introduced to it from probably like an Abdal video. I just have this habit of like, looking and being really interested in productivity hacks and all that stuff. I'm just the classic case of I love all that stuff, but I'm not very good at it. So I feel like if I know the answer, like somehow it will just like seep into my, my being, and I'll change. And it slowly does, over time. I take little bits and pieces, but I think it was an Ali Abdal video. I can't remember what I was looking at, what I was looking up, but it just came up on my YouTube feed. Um, and I saw it was probably like that resonance calendar video, and I downloaded it. And looking back now, even understanding what I was building back then, I was just playing around. I had no idea, how Notion worked. I had no idea how to like really master it. And so I actually remember kind of looking through my workspace recently and finding some of those first pages and kind of workspaces that I was building. And I was just thinking like, wow, like this would have been a mess to work with. But when it really, I think, shifted and became something totally new, was when I started watching the August Bradley videos. And man, I was just so like, I just wanted to know everything about, his system and how it was working together and all that stuff. And I was working construction. It was kind of a hard time in life where I was working like 12, 13 hours a day,
Oh,
coming home to this tiny apartment. I was newly married. But I was just so like hungry to watch these videos and learn more. And yeah, it was just kind of this natural, like, I just really want to know more and find out more. So I just would come home and I'd even like get in the shower. I don't know if this is too much information, but I would watch videos in the shower. I have a pop socket on my phone. So I put this little sticky thing on my shower wall so I could put a phone on there and get home
also,
from work and watch these videos. So that's probably a little too weird. Don't tell August, but uh, that's
one, two.
but yeah, so that's what really kind of like leveled up my notion, you know, the the deep dive into how databases work and relate together and all that stuff. So that's really what kind of those were kind of the two big jumps in terms of finding out about Notion and really the next step past that.
Yeah, I think backing um, to the shower, I think that's one of the best places we can think.
Yeah,
So I'm just going to insert one question here.
sure.
Where do you think or feel that you learn or think uh, the most or better, actually?
Yeah, that's a good question. Obviously, the shower. But I don't know if this is a bad habit or a good habit. I'm kind of getting sidetracked already, but I've noticed that lately we're off to a great start. That lately in the
Definitely the
morning,
first one.
I just I get on my phone in the shower. I don't know if that's normal or not. Maybe we should just make it normal. But that's when I actually like getting on Twitter and just kind of seeing, because for some reason maybe it's just because it's a worldwide thing. Like I get a lot of like replies or whatever overnight, so it is kind of fun. Like I actually enjoy it. It doesn't feel like taxing or it doesn't feel like I'm death scrolling or anything like that. So I enjoy even just starting my day that way. But back to your question, where do
Yeah,
I think the best, or come up with new ideas? The shower for sure. Driving, kind of those typical things. I've been thinking recently, um, as I've started trying to be intentional about capturing my thoughts as they pop up, like those creative thoughts. You're like, oh man, it's going to disappear if you
yeah,
don't write it
yeah.
down in the next 20 seconds.
I know.
Almost always those I get quite a bit of those when I'm in between being awake and asleep, and it even takes a little bit more discipline to like open my eyes, grab my phone, just jot it down, and I use drafts, and I'll jot it down there real quick because I don't want to lose it. But it's not like I've really even used them that much up until this point. But those are when a lot of them come up, and I'm actually not surprised because I remember reading about some famous inventors. You can fill in the blank because I think a lot of them kind of realize this too. Was they understood that a lot of a lot of times when they had a problem they were trying to solve and they came
Mhm.
up against kind of that wall where they just couldn't get past it, they would kind of try to hack the system, and they would find a way to half fall asleep and then wake
Yeah,
themselves up, and a lot of times they would come up with the answers. And so I remember reading about one inventor. I don't want to put a name on it because I'd probably misquote it or get the wrong person, but they would fall asleep in a chair, take a nap in a chair, holding something metallic with a pot on the ground, and when their muscles relaxed enough, it would drop the whatever it was, the metal, onto the pot, wake them up, and somehow that helped them be more creative and solve problems. And I totally believe that, so I don't think
yeah.
I'm too crazy kind of finding that out.
Yeah, I remember that. I actually tried once to grab something in my hand, but I couldn't. Like, I was like waiting. I think I put too much pressure into the experiment of trying to do that. But I think when
Yeah.
I'm napping, I try to nap for 15 minutes. So I think
Hmm.
those are the windows, right? Like when you something clicks, but it's very weird because the moment you wake up, you forget most things. So I don't
Hmm.
know how the brain works, but it's very very interesting what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I I, I think yeah, the shower is a great place to think. Also, walk and the gym. And you mentioned you see Twitter in the morning. Uh,
Hmm.
I've been thinking about distractions lately, how they impact our day, and what are your thoughts on distractions? Do you feel like you can manage distractions, or are you a victim of notifications?
Yeah. Oh, that's a interestingly worded question. Victim of notifications. I mean, we just in the 21st century and culturally are, in the grand scheme of the world, I mean, in a sense, like nothing's new, but in another sense, like we are experiencing something that nobody has ever experienced. Just this like neurological onslaught of information, of stimulus, of, at the end of the day, corporations doing anything they can to grab your attention and keep your attention. So, those things are not surprising to me. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's the reason why this is all over Twitter, in productivity circles, this managing distractions and all that stuff, is because people are like dealing with it and they're realizing like they don't stand a chance unless they do something proactive
Yeah,
to fight distractions. So, um, yeah, me personally, I mean, I don't know if I'd call myself a victim. I hesitate to like victimize myself from
yeah, that's very good
notifications.
point.
Uh, but I get what you're saying for sure, and I'm definitely like I'm yeah I'm a big target. I'm an easy target. There's the weird phenomenon where when you have something that you need to do, eh, anything like anything productive, it's like you be productive to not do the really productive thing that you actually need to do. So I've been through all those kind of normal phases of, when I needed to get something done, all of a sudden I'm cleaning the house and doing the dishes
I
and
know.
all these things, that are
Feel
like
you.
they're good, but they're really not what I should be doing. So I mean, I'm in the middle of that even now. I think all of us have to kind of be self-reflective and every day just try to like figure out a little bit more what makes us tick, what we can do to help ourselves, how we can have more discipline. So yeah, I mean, I've even noticed probably in the last month or two, that I'll like feel like I'm doing work for an afternoon or something, and then by the end of the day, uh, if I'm supposed to be building a Notion workspace for a client or something like that, I look back at the day and I'm like, well, I didn't get anything along those lines done. I talked to a lot of people on Twitter, which I think is like still good. It's
Yeah,
part of my business, and it's not like I have a huge audience, but like I really enjoy engaging with people. Um, but I look back and I'm just realizing like I didn't actually get what I needed done, because I thought I was being productive doing other things. And even just learning what being an entrepreneur is like, there's so many hats you have to wear. So I also have to manage those expectations that I can't just be doing like the super deep productive thing that I'm like I can't just practice my skill for 8 hours a day. I have to be, the salesperson. I have to
I
talk to
know.
people and send emails and, figure out how to do taxes and money and all that stuff. So I try to be real with myself and be honest and say, yeah, you were distracted. But I also try to, have some grace for myself and say, like, you're learning. You are still relatively new to this, and there are things that you need to do to run a business that are that your business is contingent on. Like, you can't do the work that pays you unless you do these other things that will help you get the business to come in. And that, along those lines, thinking about like how to even charge for projects. I mean, there's so many different probably branches we could go
Mhm.
down.
Yeah,
So
I
I'll
know.
just
I
like
know.
maybe crack the door open a little bit, but um, learning along the way how to value myself and how to price something not based on like the pure hour I spent doing a piece of work, and I'm not even charging hourly anymore, but also the hours of non-paid work that go into bringing in that hour of paid work. Um, I just kind of had to learn that through experience that um, I've got to charge for the time that I'm not charging for, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, um, well, I'll try to give as many real examples as possible. I always appreciate when people kind of open up about their business and life and
Oh, thank
stuff.
you.
Um, yeah, so when I first got into like I would consider like a real consulting gig. I mean, when I got started, I was just helping people on Facebook, realizing it was a thing, and I just needed to build confidence, and so I was kind of helping people for free, getting on calls, being comfortable with all that stuff, and then charging, a little bit, maybe like the buy me a coffee link, like, hey, I helped you, if you want to donate to me, but realizing that that wasn't going to be sustainable at all. So then when I started charging, not to get too much into the weeds, but basically a friend had worked at a company. His coworker was managing all of his stuff in Google Sheets, and it was this super complex situation where he just barely had time to think about anything else besides making sure he just was full bandwidth.
Oh,
So I came in and um, I was showing him Notion, kind of talking about what's possible, and the guy was like, "Yeah, um, that's great. That sounds fine. But I'm just going to kind of stick with what I know
I know.
and what
Yeah.
works well because I just can't really afford to step out of that right now." As I was walking out, the COO was sitting there, and I can't remember what happened. I think he got my number from my friend or something like that. But as I was like walking to my car, he called me. Was like, "Hey, why don't you come back in?" So I walked back in, and he's like, "Hey, I kind of overheard you talking to this guy. Why don't you tell me what you're talking about?" And so we talked. I told him what I was doing. Long story short, they're this national company all over the U.S. where they would build school housing for like colleges and things like that, and then they
Wow.
would also manage it. So they had these general managers all over the country that had these. daily tasks that they needed to accomplish and make sure that things were running smoothly. And so they needed a system to kind of manage all that. And so, even skipping ahead, I got connected with the right guy, and we started a kind of a client relationship. And I charged $50 an hour. So at that point, I was like, "Oh, sweet!" Like, I was working a construction job for like 16 bucks an hour. And so this was like, yeah, $50 an hour. That sounds great. That sounds like a huge amount of money. And I would hop on calls with a guy, and we basically started from scratch. And I kind of coached him through how to build things. That was kind of my approach back then. Was I would coach somebody through how to build it, and along the way they would learn how to kind of be a Notion pro.
Oh,
They would know how to use the system. At the end of it all, great time. Loved connecting with that guy and helping him. He kind of got to the point he picked it up really quick where he just knew what he was doing. He didn't really need my help anymore. So I was thinking like, yeah, that's exactly what I want to hear. That means I was
I like
successful,
that.
and I do think I was successful. But then we called it a day, and I sent the invoice, and I had worked with him for 30 hours, and it was $1,500. And I was sitting there thinking like, yeah, that's nice money, for like kind of a first big project. At the same time, this national company just like totally changed and upgraded their operations. They were
Yeah.
using Trello. They just got this like custom, back end solution to manage their operations across the entire country for $1,500.
Well, if you
And
put that into perspective, yeah.
yeah, and I think that is another conversation about, like, pricing based on value that I'm still,
Value. Yeah.
learning, um, but really at the end of the day, your product is worth what somebody's willing to pay for it, and if it's valuable to them, they will pay for it. This free market idea, we're so used to commodities like a Big Mac. A Big Mac is $1, or like coffee. Like you go and pay $5 for a coffee at Starbucks, which is premium. But if somebody wants to charge you $20 for a cup of coffee, you're just like, no, I'll just go somewhere else.
Hmm.
So you have to have some sort of position, to be able to charge, but somebody also has to value it. Like coffee, you can go somewhere else. That's kind of a different story. Whereas with somebody's business, that's an asset. They're going to use that to make more money. I'm not using the coffee to, besides staying alert, but like I'm giving them something to help them make more money. And so it's worth the investment for them to put in the money. So as long as I can give them a product that's going to help them make more money, but even more importantly, if they are confident and they feel like this is actually going to be a good investment and I can make this sale, then it's totally worth, the high price tag that, gets
Yeah.
assigned to the project. So yeah, I've had to learn all these things. I got to do it all. Like I got to do it all the hard way because, I knew these things. But until I went through that experience, and no hard feelings, of course, but like of charging $50 an hour, which before I thought was a lot. And then afterwards I just realized like, oh, I get it now. Like this is a business, a multi-million dollar business that just for pennies on the dollar, I mean, just for
Hmm.
nothing, they had somebody help them. So yeah.
I think the value we give things, the intrinsic things. Now let me phrase it differently. I think we need a infra. I think the new infrastructure is like more expensive because you can see the things that are being like uh, bought, or we need new computers. That's what I meant. So you can see the value in them, but hey, this is an advice, or this is a better way to doing this, or I can help you to change your mindset. Uh,
Hmm.
that's very difficult to value in terms of setting value for those things. Uh, so, what would you say to yourself when you just before you started that project? What would you say today to that Josh?
Man, I do things differently now. Um, I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I would want to. The easy answer is hey, charge more. I mean, but that's really simple, and I already kind of knew that, like, oh, you can charge more. Um, yeah, not to get too branched off, but this really deeply connects with me to the definition of money. So I think I really had to understand what money was before I could understand what value was, and why I should charge more, and why I felt right about charging more. That was another thing too. Is I almost felt guilty. I mean, I was raised in poverty. My mom was, I was raised by a single mother. She retired from the Navy, and she she did her best raising me, and I came out somewhat all right, I think. But man, I knew nothing about money, and I spent most of my life just spending whatever I made. Um, so I really had to learn a lot about not only discipline with money, but also what money was. I just thought it was like this green stuff that, bought you nice things, but you could get really greedy. And if you wanted too much, you were greedy. Even just being a Christian, like there's so much, there can be so much, evil attached to it, which, rightly so. It's the love of money, being the root of all evil, as the Bible would say.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that money isn't a good thing or can't be used for a good thing. But I didn't fully connect it until actually I started researching cryptocurrency. So when I researched Bitcoin,
Mm.
to kind of find out what it was, I was listening to podcasts and watching YouTube videos, and the phrase that really stuck was that money is stored value, and you do
Mhm.
things that are valuable and you get compensated in money. There's so much. I mean, I obviously had to learn so much more around it to really make sense of that, but just the idea that you work, and in just a barter society, I might make some bread and trade it for some fish from somebody, but to scale that, ability to trade and get what you want, you have to use some sort of intermediate or intermediary thing, which would be currency, money, but
Yeah.
it has to be valuable to everyone else. Um, it has to stand for something. And when I started thinking about my effort, my work, my input, all these things, that's what I'm doing, and I'm getting something in return. Then, like, man, everything switched. I was just like, I was thinking, like, I don't want. It's not that I want to be rich, for the sake of like buying nice toys or whatever, but
Mhm.
it's like, why would I not want to make the most out of my time? My time is limited. I have a very finite time on this earth. My life is a vapor, and there is more to life than just trying to get the most, trying to wring the most out of it, even in terms of money. But why would I not try to excel and do something good and get the most out of it that I can, while also seeing it as a way of providing value to the world? Because, like I said earlier, something's only worth what somebody's willing to pay for it. If somebody's willing to pay you a lot of money, theoretically, that means that they value it a lot. That means that somebody in the world values what you do a lot. It means you're providing value to the world,
Yes.
and
Yes.
you're improving the world in some small way. And so seeing that was so liberating for me. Seeing my role in life, the things that I'm put on the earth to do, man, those things really just made entrepreneurship appealing to me. It used to be a greedy thing, and now it's like, this is how I can leave a real lasting mark for good in the world, and I can do that through something really niche, like building a Notion workspace for a business.
Mhm.
And if they value it, they're going to be able to use that to make more value for themselves, to provide value to other people and get money themselves. So I'm kind of sharing in that. We're partnering to create something valuable, in a sense. I like to look at it that
Yeah,
way,
I
that
like that.
whatever they can do, whatever I'm helping them build, their business, whatever they're doing, like, I'm kind of partnering in a small way to help them do that better. And so it makes sense to take a small slice of whatever increase there is coming out of that. And I learned that from Chris Doe on YouTube, just sharing that idea of kind of sharing value when you partner with somebody.
I like the idea of value, and I think we don't understand. I relate to what you said. Like, money is just paper, right? Green paper,
Yeah.
or in Mexico is all colors. But
Yeah.
uh, I think the idea of you can only get money through a job, or if someone gives it to you. But I think I think the key is creating value, right? And
Hmm.
I think that's a very important lesson. So yeah, charge more is not as valuable as understand what value is. I think what you
Yeah.
just mentioned is the real thing, right? What is value?
Yeah.
And um, you've been, I think, the common theme across from construction until today is been learning. So,
Hmm.
what do you say that learning is? How do you define it? Not
Yeah.
as a dictionary, but as you're saying, uh, like value.
Sure.
You mentioned value, and what is learning?
Yeah. Well, as a precursor, I hope that even 5 and 20 and 50 years from now, you could also, talk to me and still see the same theme. I always want to be learning because, man, if I ever get to the point where I feel like I know it, um, I've kind of lost my way. Yes, you can master something, and I think I've mastered certain things in some sense, but there's always room to improve. There's always a way to get better. Learning, what would I call learning? Um, Man, it's probably right in the line with the theme of your podcast of being curious. Just there's something unexplained. Ooh, I'm thinking. I'm kind of thinking off the cuff right now. I think it's problem solving.
Problem solving.
Um, yeah, yeah. When you don't know something, it's a problem, or at least it is to me. And there's obviously so many different levels on that spectrum where there's plenty of problems that I come across that I just don't care about because they're not interesting to me. And for whatever
Hmm,
reason that
that's
is, I'm
interesting.
not
Yeah.
sure. But I love problem solving. That's why I enjoy doing what I do now. And I could even maybe try to like tie it to drumming, which I did for so long, is
That's
solving
yeah.
solving a rhythm problem, and doing it in a logical way that comes together neatly, but also creatively and beautifully in a sense. Um, I think learning is problem solving, and I just want to solve problems. I enjoy the challenge. I've always enjoyed logic puzzles. Um, yeah, is that somewhat
Yeah,
close to what you're expecting?
I wasn't expecting anything. I wanted
Yeah.
to learn your perspective, so it was good to hear. And I was talking to my wife, I think yesterday. We are watching this Ted Lasso series, and it's not a big spoiler, but two people are like playing with this ball of paper. So the goal is to uh, how do you say, like punch it, and then the other person needs to punch it again, and you
Hmm.
uh, don't. The goal is to not drop the ball, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of sports are something like that, but they found like value in that, and they kept a score. And I was like, why do we do that? Like, we have some objectives, and we just want to do some things, and we come with things in order to improve those things, and some of those are very
Hmm.
trivial, and another
Yeah.
ones are like very important, like how can I provide to my family, right? That's another problem, and I need to learn how to uh,
Hmm.
make money. And maybe if I understand the idea of value that we just talked, I can do it better. So I think we learn. I like what you said. We learn because we need to solve problems. And you said something else, problems that you care, because there are a lot of problems out there. But I think you need to care about those problems. And I think that
Yeah.
that's great. And we need to learn a lot of things. You mentioned you need to do marketing, and you need to do taxes, and you need to do the actual work of building a Notion space, workspace. And as in life, there are a lot of things that we can learn, and I know we can learn everything. So, what are some things I like to ask this question? What are some things that you want to learn, but you have decided not to learn because
Mm.
there's not enough time?
Yeah. That's a hard lesson to learn, and whether or not you like it,
I
as you
know,
get
I know.
older, you realize like I've only got so much time. Ah, man, I that just defined me. So much of my 20s was like, oh man, I want to do that. I'm interested in that. I could do that. What if I was a lawyer? What if I, man, yeah. I grew up I never wanted a career. There was nothing, and there still almost isn't. I mean, I do have a kind of a direction and a goal as far as my career goes right now, knowing it could change. But to be totally frank, like that's one of the first times it's ever happened in my life, and I'm 31, and I just kind of got into the space when I was, like 2 years ago at max. Before that, I did a lot of drumming, so I just assumed like if that kept going, maybe I would be a professional drummer. But that's also kind of a hard thing to make happen unless the stars align. Um, so yeah, even just the fact of having this goal in mind is relatively new. This career. So along the way to get here, there's so many. It was so easy to kind of see a shiny object, or in that case, like a career option, or I could do this, I could learn that. Trying to think of like real concrete things that I've had to like say no to, um, and also realistic ones. It's like yeah, it'd be cool to like play professional sports, but that's not really realistic. Even though
Which
I
one? Or
got Yeah, probably soccer. I mean, not really, but even though I got better in my older years, um, you just got to realize like the time for that is kind of past. Like my
it's so
my
sad.
natural tendency is like, how can I be the best? You know, so I want to be better. Not maybe not even how can I be the best, but it's like how can I just keep doing this that I love and improve because I love that process. But something like soccer, it's like uh, I didn't have that foundation as a kid to really actually be that good later. So even when I was kind of thinking about going to college, small college, like not even a great soccer team, and I was like, oh man, maybe I could play soccer on the soccer team, and I'm like in my mid 20s, um, and it's just like, well, maybe that's just not like a good path to go down or to spend your time on. So yeah, I don't know if there's too many realistic things now that I'm saying no to. Um, I did have to kind of put school on the back burner recently. I started my master's degree, and I did my first year last year, and it's a master's of divinity, which I think I
Oh
mentioned to
yeah, I
you
remember.
previously. It kind of sounds like a Harry Potter degree, so I'm not learning from Professor Snape or something. But it's like a classic degree that maybe a pastor would get. I wasn't trying to be a pastor, but I wanted to learn more about theology and kind of more about church ministry and be kind of prepared for a lifetime of uh, more just prepared serving. Um, but I started it, and I think this will be hopefully a helpful and good answer, a fitting answer. But I started it, and I enjoyed it, and that was last year. And along the way, I was learning through school, but also through kind of a mentor of mine, thinking through this idea of responsibility and vocations. And I was in school, and like I said, I wasn't trying to be a pastor, but that's what most of the guys were going there for. I was almost doing it because, as we were kind of talking about previously, I just had this interest. I wanted to know
Mhm.
these things, and I enjoyed it, and like that's never been a bad thing for me, and I've always had the freedom. But life changes. I got married, and so now my responsibilities have shifted. I have a responsibility to be a provider and a partner to my wife, and then eventually, if we do have kids, like that's a big responsibility because they can't take care of themselves. Like my wife could technically take care of herself, even though I don't want her
Mhm.
to. But kids, like that's a different story. Um, so and this would be interesting because I know like culturally, this is becoming very disagreeable. This is a contentious viewpoint. So I'll give my disclaimer that I understand that now. Um, but I through going through school, I started learning about this idea of vocations and responsibilities. I have a vocation, um, as a man to be what God intended for me to be as a man. Now that I'm a husband, I have a responsibility to be a good husband, not only because that's God's expectation for husbands, but also because I made a vow. Like that's what my marriage ceremony was we stood before God and our friends and family as witnesses and made a vow to be there for each other through thick and thin. And so I do bear this responsibility, God given, and just being a man of my word. So uh, yeah, I'm trying to keep the story concise, and I'm not very good at that. But
No, but
long
I'm
story.
really enjoying the all the conversations that we're having.
Okay, good. Um, yeah, towards the end of that school year, I remember one of the assignments was actually to this would be interesting or kind of funny, but was to sit in silence and solitude, and you can't have anything but your Bible, and you don't even necessarily have to read that. You just need to be, like we were talking about distractions, no distractions. Obviously, I couldn't bring my phone or anything, no books, just a journal and a Bible if you wanted it. And I did that, and I remember just thinking like I was at this crossroads in life of like this Notion thing was kind of taking off, but I had started school,
Hmm.
and my wife at the time was wanting to be a dentist, and so she was in the middle of these really hard exams for a few months to prepare for getting into dental school. And if she did get in, it was going to be 4 years of 12-hour days, hard
Wow.
marriage, and then $250,000 worth of debt at least,
Hmm.
and then to become a dentist. And then what happens when we have kids? Like, what's that actually going to look like? So as we were thinking through these things, it almost felt like all these things just kind of came together at once. And it was like, okay, like a decision is on the horizon. Like you need to make a decision whether you're going to go forward with this Notion thing or not. And and I remember sitting down and I wrote in that journal a few pages, and this kind of Notion thing was a big part of it because I had kind of actually left it. I was thinking like like I thought that was one of those things I needed to abandon for the sake of moving on with my life and being productive and finding out what I needed to do next. But I also realized like I missed it and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the thinking process, and I felt like I was going to be letting myself down and missing out if I didn't go forward with that opportunity. And I even took the opportunity to pray about it, and I was journaling, and I remember writing very specifically like, no, this is what I want to do, and I think this is where at least at that time and even up until now, God is calling me and wants me to kind of pursue it, at least giving me the freedom to do it. I'm not going to say, I'm God's, hero for Notion.
Yeah.
That's not at all what I'm trying to say. But, I felt like, I've got the freedom to pursue something like this, to pursue entrepreneurship. And not that he's going to make, like throw money in my lap, but you're going to have to go out and learn and earn it. But just trusting and knowing that, um, that I could move forward with that in faith. And so all of that kind of happened, and rethinking my roles that I mentioned, and kind of all at once, with some discussion with my wife, things changed, and I realized, okay, like I determined, I kind of settled, I'm going to pursue this. I'm not going to kind of halfway do it, halfway think about it. I'm going to try to make a business out of this, try to provide for my family with this. And I also realized that school was one of those things that was now not a priority.
Hmm.
It had brought me to Kansas City where I am, but now it's not a priority because it's not what's actually going to get me to the point of being able to be a responsible husband, a responsible man, at least not for the time being. Like that's not what's going to provide. Like I need to get those things down first. And if I want to pursue knowledge for, whatever other reason, like that can come. I'm not against that. And I do want to pursue those classes when I have the opportunity, but I realized I need to spend time pursuing this if I'm really serious about it. And so I had to put school on the back burner. And so it's funny, I lived on campus. I don't anymore, but I still work on campus. And I was a full-time student, and now I'm not, but I'm still kind of on campus. So I love being around the campus and around those people. And it is still a bit of a balancing act where I'm still there, but also still trying to put a lot of effort into making my business work. But it's worked out so far. But to answer your question again in a long way, I think we're still on that question. I had to put school kind of on the back burner. I had to say, okay, like this is something I'm actually really interested in, and I think me going to school for a year really proves that. Um, but I, for the sake of these better things, I need to put it on hold, and that's tough, and that happens with a lot of things. But I think at the end of the day, even further, even just a part of like my faith is the thing that helps me maybe get through some of those areas where I'm like, man, I'm going to live my whole life without ever experiencing that or ever knowing what that was like. I think, you know what? I've got an eternity in heaven that's going to be, you know, uh, an untold amount of times better than anything I could even imagine this life is going to be. So I just think, you know what? I don't know what heaven's going to be like, but it's going to be way better than what I've got here. And so I'm okay with what I've got currently going, and I'm thankful for it. Even I think contentment is part of the picture too, like being content with what we have, and being a good steward of the life that I do have and the resources that I do have. I might think that it's not much, but really it is. And so being happy with it, content with it, thankful for it, and a good steward of it. Like, how can I use this to the best of my ability and use it wisely?
Yeah, I think when I started this uh, podcast or conversations, I was interested on knowing more like the person behind the business, behind the template, Notion template, behind the everything. And I think these are the things that we don't talk enough, that we don't share enough. Like what the things that we need to cross to get where we are not like learning how to do the Notion thing or
Hmm.
put the effort. I think decisions and be willing to learn and to be responsible. You mentioned. I think those are the things that you mentioned. Uh, I admire more now what you're doing because I know it's not easy to have a family, to have a wife to take care of, and to be responsible and to say no to good things. I think that's what you mentioned, right?
Hmm.
It's hard to
Yeah.
say no to good things.
Yes.
Uh, thank you for sharing all these stories behind the perspectives method, for example. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of history there, and I think we need to share more about how we got here, the decisions we made along the way that were hard, and the principles that are guiding us. So, um, what I would like to end with this. We need another talk soon to talk about more of these other topics, but. Uh, what is something that you want to do daily or to work on uh, in this part of your life or 2023 soon that you
Hmm.
think is important that you need to grow? For example, I need to be more responsible, I need to work on that, or I need to be more productive. uh, Hopefully it's not like being productive like it's more concrete, but what are the things that you know you need to work on that you are not good today, that you want to focus next year or choose the length you want?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, there's like 20 threads that I'm always trying to hang on to and get better at, for the sake of being a better human,
Everything.
businessman,
Yeah,
whatever it is. Yeah.
exactly.
Um, are we, you want me to kind of zone in on business or?
No, I think the business is, I think the business is you, and if you can't continue with
Hmm,
the business doesn't exist. So the important thing that is going to help Josh to go through the next decisions that you will need to take to put the effort to work those late hours.
hmm, yeah, man, if I could boil it down, this is the problem that I
I
haven't
think you
necessarily
can't.
solved. Yeah, yeah.
Thinking
Uh,
about the answer is, I think, is a good exercise.
yeah. But if I could boil it down to the problem that I perceive so far, it's that I know what I need to do and I don't do it. And I know what I need to not do and I do it. I'm kind of being tongue in cheek with a Bible verse. Um, but yeah, it's what maybe the secular world would call discipline. Um, but I see it so much in my life where, man, if I could unlock this superpower of I know what I need to do. Well, I mean, sometimes like prioritizing and stuff like that, that's another skill. But it's like, man, if I could just do what I know I need to do, I would be just so different. I mean, personally, professionally, all these things. It's always this gap between what I know is right and my follow up with it, my execution on it, and that kind of applies to any area of life. I fall short, and I know where I want the standard to be. I want it to be higher. I want to do more. I want to work harder. I want to work more focused. I want to be a better husband. I want to be the kind of husband that cleans up the house and doesn't expect any thanks or anything like that. But at the same time, like I live in this physical body that's just fighting against me. It's like this battle between the flesh and the mind, or the flesh and the soul. Like my soul wants something and my body is just like, nah.
Yeah.
You're gonna you like I want you to sit on this couch for a couple hours. And so it's so easy to say in theory, yeah, just be disciplined, but that's really like the hardest part, right? It's like this it's this physical thing, and life is physical. We'll never get away from that. It's this combination of body and spirit. But um yeah, if I could unlock that ability to do what I know I need to do. And so I'm trying to kind of hack the system in a practical way. Like the way I'm trying to improve in this is get better at planning and reviewing. Like I'm trying to like f- develop a system where I can, even in a simple way, like what do you need to do, like what are you going to do today, like what are you intending to do today, like what do you have on the calendar. I've obviously got some events and stuff. Okay, what are the top 3 projects or something, like what really needs to get done. Put that on the calendar or the task list, focus on one of them, and just work on it until it's done. I think it's not that I don't want to do the work. A lot of times it's like I'm so there's too many things, and so I'm even like developing my ability to prioritize. And so yeah, there's a lot of hard skills that you need to learn to be an entrepreneur, like we've said, like accounting and
Yeah.
sales and all that stuff. There's a lot of soft skills in terms of talking to people and all those things. And I'm not even sure, I don't know if this fits into the soft skills thing or not, but those internal ability to be reflective, to be disciplined, and things like that. So yeah.
I think I am on the same boat. I was thinking about that exactly the same thing, right? I have my Notion workspace and I have my tasks and they have priorities and I just need to do them, but that's the hard part, right? And so I think
Yeah.
I don't have the answer either. I think if we figured that out, it would be awesome. But getting to I know that I need to do this and do it, I think that's the thing that I also need to work. So basically
Yeah.
what you just said. And yeah, I think for me it's also like finding what is that thing that I need to develop in order to do the things I know I want to do.
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah,
so yeah,
we're both
thank
so
you.
interested and caught up in the techniques, right, and the
Totally.
tools. We're so interested in it, and that's like the classic problem with our circle, right? Is that we care more about how it gets done, and the tools that we can use to help ourselves. Thinking like if we just find the right thing, we'll nail it, and we'll be great. But in case we haven't realized it yet, like obviously that's not the answer, and it sometimes comes down to just like you just need to do something. Like, man, sometimes I literally will take my phone, and if I'm sitting at this desk trying to get work done, I throw it down the hallway because I just don't, I got to do something. So it's
Yeah,
the little things, like any little thing will help, and it will build up, and slowly over time you get better. And that's all I can really rely on. Faith, like that's all I can count on. Is that if I just keep trying, and I take 10 steps forward in some direction, like at least I'll get one step closer, over time. um, yeah, you'll never nail it on the first try. It's always just little
yeah.
pieces here and there, but we slowly get closer to our destination.
I think that's a great place to end the conversation. We need to do or take those little steps that are in the right direction, because techniques we have them, but we need the courage to take that step. Josh, thank you very very much for your time. I feel like I need more time to talk with you, because we talk about a lot of topics, and hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Yeah,
But
of
thank you for
course.
taking the time. So
Yeah, thanks for
thank
having me.
you for listening, and we'll see you next time.